Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustKnowTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. First and foremost, before we get started, excuse my comfort. Excuse my comfort. I am very much so in relaxed mode right now. So just excuse my comfort. Sorry, guys. I had things to do today. Anyways, where do I even begin, you guys? Like, honestly, like my head is like still kind of feeling like, what the hell did I just watch yesterday? So for those of you that didn't know, like I was actually working for LAFC yesterday, and it was so difficult to know that we were playing and know that we were playing really bad and like also try to work at the same time. So literally the camera's like in my face and we're talking about LAFC and all of that, and they're smiling and I'm chuckling, but inside I am dead inside because I'm like, damn, we're down 2-0. Like at that time we were down 2-0. And then at the end, turn on my phone and we lost 3-0, and I was just thinking to myself like, wow, this was just not good, right? So yes, Tony, LAFC is undefeated. So at least one of my teams have decided to, no, you know what, here, let me just, because that's a part of it. Okay, so LAFC is undefeated, but knowing Arsenal had lost that game and in the manner in which they lost it, I was driving home and just thinking to myself, like, how did we let this happen? How is it that almost every single player was bad? How is it that when we lose so big? You know what I mean? It's we lose and then we lose big players to big injuries or suspension. And it's becoming a trend that personally is it's just taking me out. Like it's just taking me out. And so I don't know, just hearing Kieran Tierney was out before the game started just really just put a bad taste in my mouth. And then now Thomas Partey, I mean, the injuries are just mounting. And so it is leaving me with this feeling of like doom and gloom. But equally, I'm not about to be out there on the timeline saying like, well, if we don't get top four, Arteta has to go. I was always very clear about feeling like top six is the bare minimum requirement that he has to get, with obviously like he needs to be improving the team. We need to see better attacking football. And I think we've already kind of seen that. It's just a matter of getting it over the line and making sure we have at least Europa League to offer new players in the summer. But being so close to top four and feeling like it's so doable when Spurs won the game the way that they did, and then for them to win so big and for us to lose so big and then to lose key players, the doom and gloom feels natural for the fan base. But at the same time, we haven't lost a lot of games. We really haven't, like lately. We've had the Man City loss, the Liverpool loss, and I think the Burnley draw. And that's been it beyond this loss. And there was a loss coming. You know, I think every game that kind of went by, like the Leicester one, I'm like, okay, we did that. Okay, Aston Villa, okay, we did that. But I just always kind of felt like the loss was kind of coming. But it's the way it happened, right? And just the fact that Spurs went above us with their win and we just couldn't respond. And then the manner in which. So obviously we're going to go through it, talk about the first half, the second half, substitutions. What do we do now that like our key players are missing? The feeling towards Nuno Tavares and somewhat Sambi as well. Like he's been lumped into this category of players that we're just really afraid to see play for Arsenal. And I think we do have to gain some perspective when it comes to these two players. They were bought for a reason, and so they need to play in the positions that they're meant to fill in for. And was it that bad? Was it that bad where we need to tear everything up and just start again? I do feel like watching the game the way that I did without the emotion of watching it like in real time gave me a perspective on it that was less emotional than it probably would have been. It was definitely like really shit. I cannot lie. Like watching us not being able to trap a ball, not be able to pass 5 yards, defensively just looking like we've never defended in our lives was very shocking. But again, because I kind of knew what was happening, I could just kind of watch it with somewhat of a clear head. So we're going to get into it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I see that FK is in the chat. Thank you so much for showing up. You know, obviously love Latte Firm's content, FK. Excellent content here on YouTube in regards to Arsenal. And before we even get started with what we did wrong, I just want to say that there's a lot of credit that needs to go to Crystal Palace. Like, I do think that, do I think we were tactically outclassed? No. But do I think that the energy that they showed, we could not match it? And their game plan did work. Do I think it would have worked as good if we had actually shown up and played to the best of our ability? No. But then again, we don't really match up very well with them. They're starting to look like the type of team that knows how to combat big teams' strong suits. So, I mean, they've taken points off of Spurs, off of, I think they took points off of Chelsea maybe as well. Man City, we know. So Patrick Vieira seems to have a good formula for how to combat these teams that really want to play football. And credit goes to them. Like, there's no slight. Like, they were definitely the better team. They took advantage of our mistakes. When you look at the XG against, like, XG for them and XG for us, we had good chances. We didn't put them away, and they had a couple of chances from our defensive errors, and they took advantage of them. So again, when we go through the halves, like obviously I do think that like they were the better team and deserved it, but equally we just never really showed up, and I think that there are several reasons why that may be. That being said, like we can never show up to a game like that ever again. Like that was just terrible. But yeah, but a lot of credit needs to go to Crystal Palace. I'm sure that they really relished in it. And they love taking the scalps of these top teams. So there you go. Let's go ahead and get started. So kind of starting out with the first half, like I mean the first 15 minutes of the game, and like the first 15 minutes of the game were very much like nobody was on it. Like nobody was on it. And you have to think about the scenario. I do feel like Thomas Partey, like we know that he was suffering from fatigue before the game even started. That was in the injury report. So he was suffering from fatigue. And when Thomas Partey is not 100%, he basically looks like a player that plays like rec football, like non-professional football. Like I hate to say it, but that's just how he is when he's not on it. So he was having a tough time. Odegaard comes back from international duty and drops these stinkers every single time. That's definitely what was going on with him. Saka recovering from COVID. Gabriel probably hasn't trained and probably hasn't gotten any sleep because he has a new baby. I'm not saying that these are excuses. These are reasons. And I don't know what was happening with everybody else. Everybody else was just, I don't know what was going on with them. So we start the game and we just couldn't trap a ball. We couldn't pass a ball. I do think the intensity of Crystal Palace and their ability to stop Thomas Partey was making it so that there were players that were almost afraid to get onto the ball. They were afraid to show feet. They were afraid to provide the angle because they knew that Crystal Palace were going to be literally right there ready to smash them. Yeah, newsflash, like when you play against physical teams, you have to step up and be physical. And this is going back to the scouting report that we did the other day on midfield/forwards. I do think we need players that are a little bit more physical, a little bit more combative. We have a lot of nice players that play nice football, that look good on the ball. But there's some players in our team that when they get pressed, when they're pushed around, when they have to go up against the Crystal Palaces and the Liverpools, the teams that like to get in and around you, they just kind of don't show up. And that is not good. You do not want to have certain teams that have your number just because they can push you around, right? So just going back to that, it just felt like Crystal Palace were up for it. They were ready to be physical. They were going to challenge us for every single thing. And as Thomas Partey was getting the ball and was unable to get free, there were players that probably should have been showing angles, Xhaka and ESR and Lacazette, that just weren't really showing. They were very much behind their player. And that caused a lot of issues in that first half. Not to mention the defending. Like first, like I think they scored in the 17th minute. We got scored on by a free kick that was very avoidable. Cedric was going in for a tackle, and Ben White just bumbles over him and whoever had the ball and fouled. And then the cross comes in from Conor Gallagher and nobody was marking, and then Nuno Tavares ducked. What's happening here? Like, why are you ducking? And that really was shocking to me that he would duck there. I don't know what he was thinking. It was not just him. Like I do think that Ben White and Gabriel's lack of like sharpness and lack of decision making led to a lot of these mistakes that came. I don't know why Ben White fouled there. There was no reason to foul there, but if you're going to foul, you guys better organize the back line and make sure that you guys are ready for crosses. I've never seen us like that. That was very vintage Arsenal, not able to just defend a simple cross into the box. And it was nice. Like it was a nice cross, but like it didn't deserve a duck and then a goal, right? So they scored their first goal, and I just thought, like, okay, so now I can see the jitters are just getting worse and worse and worse, So that next 5 minutes in between the first goal and the second goal was the worst football I've ever seen us play. It was just very much, it was giving nerves. It was giving like, oh, I've never played before. And this is where I feel like your leaders need to step up, like in these games. And I didn't really see that from Lacazette, from Thomas Partey, from Granit Xhaka, from Ben White, from Gabriel. These are the times, like these are the moments where they kind of need to like show their feet and put in a tackle on somebody, gain control of the game, and they just still didn't do it. And that's where experience and leadership really comes in, is not when we're playing really well against, you know, I don't know, Leicester and teams like that. It's not then. It's really when you're in moments of adversity. And we really, even if we go down a goal, that doesn't mean that you go down 2-0 within the next 5 minutes. And we just didn't have a grasp on the game. And we didn't have the ability to problem solve. Like it was very, that those 5 minutes in between the first goal and the second goal, I was like, I don't even recognize this team at all. So obviously the second goal comes from a ball from Joachim Anderson, I believe, in between that space, like behind Xhaka and in between Gabriel and Nuno Tavares. And Gabriel steps forward, really just, and okay, we're going to get on Gabriel in a second, but he comes out, misses it, and then they're in on goal, and we let Ayew score a goal on us. And so it's annoying that we didn't even make them work hard for the goals that they got, but that was game set there. You give up 2 goals in the first 25 minutes in an adversity, and we're not at home, you're not coming back from that. We're just not the type of team that can come back from a goal down when we're away from home against a team that's up for it. So that was really disappointing to see. And it was just like a comedy of errors, like for both goals. And I think Gabriel does this thing where he's under pressure. Like, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I still feel very strongly about it, that we're going to find out which players can actually play for Arsenal moving forward in a very significant role when we're under pressure. Because Arsenal is always going to be under pressure. If we don't make Champions League this season, guess what? You're going to be expected to make it next season. If we make Champions League, you're going to be under pressure to make sure that we get out of group stages and still qualify for Champions League again. So there can't be 4 or 5 games in a season where you just drop stinkers and those stinkers lead to goals of that magnitude. So I was basically saying a couple weeks ago that this stretch that we're going on, it's easier to get yourself in this position, but it's harder to get it over the line when then you become the favorites to get it. And over the last couple of weeks, you've heard Odegaard talk about it, Saka talk about it, that we are going for top 4. And so we were going to see what players can handle the pressure and which ones can't. And I've thought of this for weeks, that like, I think Gabriel is somebody that we have to watch, because since the City game, he's been dropping these really shaky performances here and there. And his mistakes cost us massively. They're not little mistakes. They're really rough. Like they are tough goals to swallow. And so between the Wolves one and this one and the red card against City, he's looking like somebody that we need to watch. That's all I'm saying, in terms of, are you going to be able to step up for Arsenal? And when we're in the Champions League or in the Europa League final, are you going to drop a stinker and kill the games for us? That's what I'm looking at right now. Who can handle the pressure? And right now, there's some players that look like they might be suffering, but we'll see what happens, right? So he came out and he was rash. Obviously, Nuno Tavares is just in no man's land. They score the second goal and it's pretty much over from there. We saw Lacazette go back to Gabriel and speak to him. It's too late. Like, it's too late now. Like, y'all should have talked to him before the game started. So then we start to, from that moment, from the 30 minutes on, we played okay, but it's literally too late. And I know some people feel like we were tactically outclassed, but I just can't help but feel like if certain players in that first half would have recognized that Crystal Palace and every other team in this league understands that if you stop Thomas Partey and you stop Odegaard and you stop Saka, we're going to have a difficult time playing. But what we've been able to do over the last couple of weeks is have another threat on the other side. And that's where Martinelli has been very beneficial to us. Now, we haven't always been able to take advantage of it, per se, but we really missed him in this game. We did. Like, we missed a fresh Martinelli running up the other side and causing a threat on that side, because not only does he have that threat in behind, but he's also aggressive, and he doesn't just let people win the ball without any sort of going back at them at all, right? And I just thought in that first half, Xhaka was hiding behind his man. He didn't look like he wanted to be the guy that made the mistake. Well, guess what? Because you weren't showing the angle, you became that guy anyway. Like, that is a mistake. Like, if Thomas Partey gets shut down right now, there's nobody else in midfield that's going to step up and make sure that they get on the ball. Because Odegaard, his supply line is Thomas Partey, and Granit Xhaka hid in that first half, and so Thomas was just out there flailing. Um, it was crazy. And then ESR, I just think that he took the easy way out. Like, if they're spending a lot of their time shutting down Thomas Partey, putting numbers on Odegaard and putting numbers on Saka, one of y'all have to be available. Like, one of you guys have to be able to do something. And one of ESR's best attributes is being able to dribble at defenders and get into space and try to make things happen. And I just think he was kind of not really there. And then Xhaka didn't help. And then it didn't help that Nuno couldn't keep the ball either. So the left-hand side was really disjointed, and they really didn't cover themselves in glory. I know we're really focused on Odegaard and Thomas Partey and Saka because, like, they're our guys, but other teams are going to scout them and try to take them out of the game. The other side of the pitch has to take some responsibility, and I thought that that was a big part of the first half that didn't go our way. So then we came into that second half, and I just thought, okay, so can we get like a goal back or something? Obviously, I'm watching it in after the fact, but I'm thinking, did we have any opportunities to score goals? And we did. Like, we had some opportunities. Well, let me see what you guys are saying first, because I know you guys are probably like, what are you saying? Tony says, calling out Xhaka and ESR is fair. Nuno was obviously our weakest link, but the players around him didn't help. Yeah, I mean, Nuno was in an unsettled team where everybody was playing really, really poorly. And so I do feel like a little bit bad for him, because if he had been playing with a more settled team, would he have done better? Maybe. But I don't have as high expectations for Nuno as I do for ESR and Xhaka. I didn't see a lot of effort from them. I saw a lot of, oh, I'm just going to hide right here. I'm not going to give you an angle, or I'm going to pass back and like not really try to take on my man. And there was one particular instance that made me want to throw my phone at the TV. It was a moment where ESR was kind of in the corner with whoever was defending on that side, and like two Crystal Palace players, and he was kind of messing around with the ball and lost it and fell on the ground. They didn't foul him or anything. He just kind of fell. And instead of getting up, because the ball was still there, instead of getting up and trying to get it, he just kind of waved his foot around and then just sat there, and they just dribbled away. And I'm just thinking, if Martinelli is there, does he try to get that back? Like, there was just no fight in the team. Like, there was just nothing. And so Nuno, we can call him out as much as we want, but he hasn't played. He was playing an unsettled back line. I think a lot of Gabriel's nervousness obviously transmitted to him, but Xhaka is supposed to be our other top midfielder, right? And ESR is somebody that a lot of people feel like should be playing in this team, should be starting over Odegaard, maybe starting over Martinelli, maybe playing in a false nine, but he didn't really do much. And so, yeah, you got to call him out. But equally, I've already said, like, Thomas Partey and Odegaard were not good. Like, that's the thing as well. Even though I'm looking at Xhaka and ESR, I felt like they could have been a solution to Thomas Partey and Odegaard playing so poorly. So there you go. But going into the second half, I'm just thinking, can we get a goal back? And I do think that Crystal Palace sat in kind of similarly to like what they did at the Emirates. They got the goals, and then they were kind of like, okay, I'm going to sit in now. And it gave us the opportunity to try to get things together and link things together. And we saw that, like, Lacazette got into the game, ESR got into the game, Odegaard got into the game. We had two really good opportunities, I thought, to get onto the score sheet and put some pressure on them. But of course, we didn't put it away. Like, we didn't put those chances away. That was the ESR chance where he just kind of scuffed it, but obviously, like, Lacazette probably should have put it in the back of the net. And Odegaard got a pass, I think, from Martinelli, and he just kind of shot it to the goalkeeper. And those were two really good chances. Obviously, when you're in a moment of pressure and you're not creating a lot of chances, you snatch at the ones that you get. And that is kind of just like the consequence of being so shit in the first half. Is you get the chances and then you snatch at them. And we're not a particularly clinical team. We're not a team that when somebody gives us an opportunity, we just kill them with a dagger. We kind of let Crystal Palace off the hook there, and they got exactly what they wanted, but they allowed us to create chances. It was just a little bit too late, and we just were snatching at the chances. But I think Arteta made decent subs as well. Like, I mean, he takes out Cedric, I think, and puts in Nketiah, and Nketiah tried. Like, he was okay. Like, he really wasn't bad or anything. But he put in Martinelli as well. Martinelli tried, but he really couldn't make anything happen. And then right when we're trying to still get back into the game, Odegaard fouls in the box. And I'm just wondering what that is, because you've done it twice in the span of like 4 months, and you can't just give away silly penalties by running back there and dangling your leg out. He has got to be more responsible there. And even though the game is almost over anyway, like, you literally don't need to give that up, So I was a little bit disappointed that he ran back there and did that. It was after Thomas Partey kind of pulled up and obviously like pulled something, and then so Odegaard tried to run back and help. But like, you don't need to help by dangling your leg out there. But there was just a lot of dangling legs out there, a lot of aloof defending, a lot of lack of concentration. That's just what we were yesterday, and it just was so strange to see. I really haven't seen us look like that since Manchester United. That was the last time that I feel like I saw that particular performance, where we just couldn't pass to feet. Thomas Partey is overrunning every single ball. People are hiding. We got a couple goals there because Manchester United were so bad, but like, it was very similar in that way, where we just shot ourselves in the foot. And so I don't know. It was so crazy. I can understand the jet lag and, the feeling tired and fatigued from international duty, but equally I'm watching other teams come back. I mean, it's not like Crystal Palace didn't have players that were on international duty. They did, and they didn't look like we did. So although I can understand it, I watched other teams not play like that. And so, like, what is really our excuse, Let's see. Latte Firm, if FK says, completely agree with your earlier point, Jess, regarding physicality. We need more physical players in our team. We need players that, if teams decide to turn it up on us in terms of the physicality, we don't just crumble. And when you have ESR and Odegaard, Lacazette, they all lack physicality. They lack the ability to like stand up and tackle. Like, they just don't. Like, they're nice players on the ball, but they don't have that level of physicality. Thomas Partey isn't necessarily a brute. We don't need him to be, but he's not really that. And then you have fullbacks that, I mean, Cedric, he was just getting bullied. And so when you see that, it does kind of be like, oh, okay, so if teams are physical and they realize that they could be physical against us, if our quality is not there, how do we combat that? We don't have any ability to combat that, because if we're not good on the ball, we have no ability to just play the game and just kind of push people around. I think that that's an issue. Let's see. Tony says ESR wasn't great and was the best player in the first half. He was just not good. I'm sorry. Like, to me, he just was. I think the thing about ESR as well is that I watch him very closely, because there are people that feel like ESR should be starting, and I just never really see that. I just always find myself missing the person that's not there, and a lot of times it is Martinelli, and I felt like I just missed Martinelli there. I just didn't. ESR wasn't like terrible, but at the same time, like, we tend to be like, well, these players are our main players, like, so they got shut down, and we're obviously thinking about Thomas's mistakes and Odegaard's mistakes because they're our best players. But what were the other people doing? You know, if they shut down our right side, what's the other side gonna do? Nothing, because that's basically what they were doing. Anton is saying Odegaard scuffed an easy one, kicked it against his own leg. I mean, but that's just that lack of concentration. You're just not in the game. You're just kind of like somewhere else. Odegaard comes back from international duty and does this all the time. Let's see. Tony says, don't kick Zaha in the box. He will get a pen, is the first message on the scouting report. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, I'm running back here. I'm not really wanting to, but I'm just going to do it. And I just dangle my leg out. I'd rather you not even run back if that's what you're going to do. You've done it twice. And I love Odegaard. It's just, Richard says the entire team had deer in headlights moment and you know what? There also might have been, a level of just some of them never being at Selhurst Park before. It's so close, and they were very loud, and so it wasn't like Villa where it felt like home, even though we were away. Palace made it really difficult. Their fans made it really difficult. Small stadium, they were really up for it. And we just had too many key players that weren't really up for it. And then the players that were just okay were just kind of there. There just wasn't enough. And so when you have a team that doesn't let you off the hook, like if we had been at home, we might have been able to get away with it because our fans would have buoyed us. They would have kept us up. But there just wasn't that comfort level. And I think at the end of the day, if we had like an easy home game, we might have got away with a performance like this, but they couldn't have been a worse fixture. It couldn't have been a worse fixture. You know what I mean? So I do think the deer in the headlights thing comes from not being prepared, maybe a little bit of arrogance, fatigue, and the fact that Selhurst Park is just not a place that you go to and you can just not show up. You have to show up there. They're very difficult to beat at home. Anton says Laka is defo physical. No, I don't think so. I think he fouls a lot, but for the most part, when he's around two center backs, they kind of just have an easy day off. So there's physical and there's somebody that fouls a lot. And I don't think Lacazette is necessarily physical. He's not somebody that's going to give you a hard time on a cross. He's not particularly athletic. So I would disagree that Lacazette is physical. I think he's somebody that big, powerful center backs look forward to playing against. Whereas if you had somebody like, I don't know, like literally any other striker in the Premier League, Mateta, you don't want to play against him. That's physical. Lacazette is not that. Let's see. Recruit says, have you changed your tune on Tony? He's a true target man. No, I haven't. I don't like his attitude. Sorry. I haven't. Daly says, Nunez, Darwin look promising tonight. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. S says, ESR was involved in all of our chances in that game. Yeah, he was involved, but like those chances came, like we didn't have a single chance in the first half. So what was he doing in the first half? The thing is, like, ESR and Xhaka looked much better in the second half, but Crystal Palace decided to sit back. Once they sat back, of course we were going to get more chances. We were going to get more opportunities to play with the ball and create chances. But when we actually needed you to be involved in the game, they did nothing. So, of course, he was involved in some of our chances, but the game was gone by then. We needed him to be involved in the first half, but he just passed the ball back every single time he got it because he was afraid to get, I don't know if he was like afraid to get hit or what. Blaze says ESR was best player when he missed a chance to score goals. So, you know, I don't know. So yeah, let's see. Yo-Yo said Martinelli should have played centrally to help stretch the back line. That was clear in the start of the first half for me. I don't know. The Martinelli through centrally sounds like a good idea, but I can easily see him not being very I can easily see him also getting marked out of the game between two center backs. I feel like, and we'll talk about this, like what is the solution for left back, the solution for midfield, and the solution for striker. But I'm not sure I'm like 100% like if Martinelli plays through the center or ESR plays through the center, everything is solved because the two of them can easily get bodied by two center backs as well. I think the player that we need does not exist at the club. That's really where we're at right now. Here we go. Okay, so Dave says, Jess, how do we recover from this defeat? Give me 1 second, we will get to that. Olivier says, Palace looked in sync and we looked offbeat. Yeah, we did. We looked offbeat for sure. It's just we're really in a position where, like, remember the last, like, let's say there were games in the last 3 months where there were some players that played really well and some players that didn't, and we could carry like maybe 1 or 2 players that really weren't playing well. Like there's been games where Lacazette hasn't played well and we were still able to get over the line because everybody else kind of played well. So we've been able to carry certain players in certain games. You can't carry 6 or 7 players, and you can't carry Thomas Partey and Odegaard. They're too important. Like you cannot carry them. And so when those two don't play well, we just don't play well. And it just didn't help. Like you could see Saka coming back from COVID. Gabriel was just not very good. So we just weren't in a position where we could carry 6, 7, 8 players. Like they were just all so bad for different reasons, I think. Let's see. Tawanda says, hey guys, I want to make a point about Tierney. Although he is a great player for Arsenal, his injuries are not helping the squad. I think we should consider the possibility to get more reliable left back. Well, we did. That's what we should have done in the summer. And I personally, I mean, Tierney, we know he's injury prone. We know that he's not going to play an entire season, but Arsenal are the ones who went out and got Nuno Tavares, a player that had very little first team experience at Benfica, to back up one of our most important and injury prone players. So we already tried that. I think that's more of a recruitment issue than we just need to get a whole new left back. I look at it like we did do that. Like we did bring in somebody, and there was times in this season where people felt like Tavares should be starting games over Tierney. So like I get that. I won't ever shift blame or anything to Tierney. I don't think it's he does get injured. We bought him injured. It's up to the club to make sure that they manage him correctly. I mean, this is somebody that they know is injury prone. They've given a new contract and they're probably going to make him captain. So this is somebody that they have to figure out a way to back him up with suitable backup, and they didn't do that. And that goes back to recruitment. I feel like we're going to have a lot of conversations in the near future, depending on where we finish, about the decisions that were made in the summer, the decisions that were made in January, because some of those are coming to bite us in the butt. Nuno Tavares has not been suitable backup for Kieran Tierney thus far. I'm sure we're going to get into a Nuno Tavares conversation, but I'm just not in the headspace to really say that we just need a whole new starting left back. I just think we need suitable backup, somebody that can come in and play like a fullback. We play with a four back. Like we don't play with wing backs. So to bring in Nuno Tavares with no experience, that's clearly more of a winger than a fullback, that's on recruitment. It definitely is. Let's see. I know Tierney. Dave, the news on Thomas Partey is that he has kind of re-aggravated that same muscle that he pulled before that's kept him out, and he's being assessed ahead of the weekend's match against Brighton. That's all we know. That's it. Tony says Saka had Odie missing, Partey spraying wildly, and Cedric pinned, not really on Saka. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see the Saka thing. Like, Saka was coming back from COVID. He really wasn't getting the same level of service. And I don't know. He tried to make certain things happen. I can't see it being Saka, especially, I don't know. Saka's spot is not really up for discussion either. He's our best right forward right now, or right winger. And so he has to start the next game. This probably wasn't one of his best, but I know what you're trying to do, S, is because you want to back ESR so much, and I get that, but I cannot get over the fact that in that first half he just didn't really add much and looked afraid to take on a man. The lack of bravery and really just the lack was just too much for me to overcome. Like, it's even if in the second half it was easier for him. The game was already done and Crystal Palace was sitting back. I don't know. So there you go. Let's see. All right, so I guess we can go into like some individual things. There's about 80 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I know people want to talk about what we're going to do about left back, what we're going to do in midfield. Should we do a change of formation? And then the striker situation going into Brighton. And here's where I kind of land on this, you guys. You guys can let me know in the chat box what you think. But I don't really want to. Okay, so let's rewind. Because after the game, I saw a lot of put Saka at left back, put Cedric at left back, put Xhaka at left back. And if you go back to last season, when we were playing in Europa League, we were playing for something, just like we're playing for something now. We had a similar breakdown around the same part of the season, right about now, where we lost Thomas Partey in certain games and we lost Kieran Tierney. And what Arteta proceeded to do was to play Cedric at left back and Xhaka at left back. And they worked in some games, and in other games, they got completely destroyed. In the Europa League, I remember Cedric very vividly having a very bad game at left back, and Xhaka also not being in midfield weakened us. And in the Europa League semifinals against Villarreal, we had Xhaka at left back and Thomas Partey alone in midfield, I think, or it was El Neni. It was one of them, with Odegaard on one side and ESR on the other. There was also like ESR playing up top. There was a lot of shit going on. And I don't want to see that again. I really don't want to see us ripping everything up and starting to move players into positions and galaxy braining things because we see Nuno Tavares in a bad light, or we're remembering Sambi from Liverpool, and we've decided that we need to play players out of position and weaken other areas because we're too afraid to play them. Tough shit. We need to play Nuno Tavares at left back and Sambi in Thomas's position because those are the positions that they were brought in to play. That is why I cannot see us moving into a 3-back. I can't see us playing a right-footed player on the left. There's no reason to do it. I feel like our system has worked as well as it can this season. We have not experimented enough in times where we should have to start experimenting now with anything. And so we kind of just have to go through these next 9 games playing players in their right positions. I'd much rather see Tavares play left back and us play the same back line, play Sambi and Thomas's position, move Xhaka back so Xhaka can cover Sambi, but also cover Nuno, and play the front like we have been, with Martinelli on one side, Saka on the other, Odegaard through the middle, and probably Lacazette. If we start tinkering now, I just don't know if that's the right thing to do. Because when we started tinkering last season, that is the exact reason why we lost. That's the exact reason why we went out of the Europa League. Too much tinkering, not enough continuity, no system, no nothing. We've seen what ESR was like in the Europa League final, in a pressured situation trying to play false 9. No, I don't want to see that. We've seen him in a left 8 position, playing with Odegaard and a single pivot. I don't want to see that again. I don't want to see Xhaka at left back. I don't want to see Cedric at left back. We brought in 2 players for this exact reason. So they need to play those positions. I cannot see it. I get wanting to play a back 3, but we're going to be playing Brighton at home. And in the second half of that Crystal Palace game, we were fine. I don't think the issue is that the system broke down. The issue is that we were shit on the ball and off it. And yes, we were scouted a little bit, but they've been doing this for weeks now, where they've been putting more pressure on Odegaard and Saka and Party, and we've been looking at the left-hand side. The difference is that we had Tierney on that left-hand side, Xhaka was over there playing decently, and Martinelli was on the left. So we were able to still create and do our thing on that side. There were just too many changes on that left-hand side, and we just weren't up for the game. But if we start tinkering and putting players in positions that they don't play, we're going to see the exact same thing we've seen in the Europa League. I guarantee it, because it just doesn't work. Nuno needs backing, and he needs to play at home. The games where he's really let us down are away from home, away at Liverpool, away at Nottingham Forest, and unfortunately away at Crystal Palace. But when he plays at home, like he did against Newcastle, he was fine. And if you just bolster him on the other side, we usually play like a back three anyway. It used to be Tomiyasu, White, and Gabriel. We can do something similar with Cedric. You can even move Ben White to right back and put Holding through the middle and Gabriel on the left so that Tavares really can bomb forward. But I think he'll be fine at home. And I guess where I get frustrated with Arteta with this is that after he snatched him out against Nottingham Forest, what did he do to rehabilitate him beyond that? Because we spoke about this right here on SheKnowsArsenal about the opportunities to bring in players in games where we are winning and allowing them to play games or play a couple of minutes so that they're fresh. And we just haven't really seen enough of that. We've won enough games and we've been in control in enough games to give Nuno 10 minutes, to give Sambi 10 minutes, to give Pepe a couple minutes. But we really haven't been doing that. And so now they're coming in cold. And Nuno, we just haven't seen him really since Nottingham Forest. So then the next time that we see him, it's in a horrible scenario at Selhurst Park against a Crystal Palace team that's not giving him an inch, right next to Gabriel, who's playing like shit. And I just don't think we were ever going to get a good Nuno there. But if you don't play him against Brighton, you're not going to be able to play him again. You won't. We'll be playing with Xhaka and Cedric at left back for the rest of the season. So this is where I feel like Arteta's management is going to come into play. You know, can he get Nuno playing well now so that we don't have to move players and put them in different positions and weaken other areas? This is why Nuno was bought. And he did play well. There was a moment in time where some people thought he was better than Tierney. And what were we doing in that moment? In those games, he was playing more like a wingback. We had our back three basically playing that way. And he was just going forward like a winger. Just do that again against Brighton. At home. Brighton is playing terribly right now. If we can't beat Brighton at home, then we shouldn't even be talking about top four. And if Nuno can't play against Brighton away from home or at home, then we need to talk about recruitment because he should be able to play. So for me, like, this is not the time to do harsh, we're never going to see him again. Because once you don't play him against Brighton, that's it. Like, I just don't think this signing is going to work out. But I think there's enough there for him to play against Brighton at home. So we don't lose him completely. So we can play a left back in the left back position. We don't have any more. Because guess what? You let Ainsley Maitland-Niles go. You let Chambers go. So now you need to play your left back at left back. Tough shit. I really just don't want to see some weird galaxy brain thing. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about Nuno Tavares? I mean, and I do think the fans have a part to play here, in terms of Nuno. When he plays at the Emirates, hopefully on Saturday, we need to get behind him. I don't think he's that bad. I really don't. I think he's somebody that has zero confidence. And I mean, if you were ripped out before halftime against Nottingham Forest, you're ripped out at halftime against Crystal Palace, I mean, you need somebody to put their arm around you. I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes. There's always the caveat of maybe there's something I'm not seeing. But from what I can see, this is somebody who we kind of need. And we've already seen the other players that aren't left backs play there before. So I'd be more looking forward to seeing Nuno play left back than Cedric or Xhaka or Saka. None of those options excite me. Let's see. Jesusen says, I think we should try Cedric at left back and Nuno at right back, change the angles for Nuno and see if that does something for him. So play the left back at the right and play the right back at the left. Cedric, when he plays, there was, I forget what game it was, but when we played in the Europa League last season, there was a moment where Cedric, because he couldn't turn his body around to kick the ball like with his right foot. No, was that in the Europa League or was that against Aston Villa last season? There was a moment last season where he was playing on the left and he couldn't shuffle his body around correctly to kick the ball with his right foot. And because of that split moment, they took the ball away from him and they ran down and scored. I don't think we should be playing players in positions where it's going to slow them down because they become pressing triggers. Tavares is already a pressing trigger. Last thing we need to do is put him on the other side. And I get that he can play with both feet and Cedric nominally can play with both feet. But you bought a left back to play left back. Let's let him play there, you know? Best Gaming Laptop says we should revert back to a 4-2-3-1 and play Tavares as left back with Xhaka deep in midfield to cover for Tavares bombing upfield. I agree. I think that that's how we were playing when he was playing well before. So just revert back to that. Blaze says some rival fans and Arsenal fans want to put all blame to Saka so Pepe can play more. Some Arsenal fans love to divide players. And I think Pepe is going to be important going into these last 9 games because Saka looks tired. And so if we are beating Brighton by more than a goal, take Saka out and put Pepe in. You're going to need Pepe. He was ill, I think, for the Crystal Palace game. These players need roles. And there were opportunities from December to keep Sambi integrated, to keep Nuno integrated, to keep Pepe integrated. And they didn't get a lot of playing time. Now we need them. And they're cold. So, what do we expect? Them to be playing super good? I don't get it. But we're going to need all of our players, and there's no reason to divide them. Yo-Yo says, Sambi and Nuno were signed for this scenario. Exactly. I mean, this is it. So play them in those positions. I'll be very disappointed if I see Cedric or Xhaka playing left back. Very disappointed. He just needs somebody to just believe in him, I think. He's never going to be a fullback. He's a wing back. But there are ways to combat that by playing your back line differently so that you can compensate for that and also allow him to use his best skills. Nuno's best skills is going forward. He's very dangerous going into the attacking half. I imagine against Brighton, we will be attacking quite a bit. So I'm not really that worried about him playing at home against Brighton. My issue is if we just don't even try it and just let him die on the bench. That'll be the end of him. Olivier says, just Nuno's first real game. Let him grow some. We have to commit. And Gabriel has to take some of the blame. I think playing next to Gabriel, and I know that he had a kid. I get that he's probably up late. But still, that performance from him, I don't ever want to see anything similar to it. That was terrible. And so when you have a nervous Nuno next to a shitty Gabriel, what do you expect? You know what I mean? So if everybody else can play like they've been playing, Gabriel play like he's been playing, White play like he's been playing, everybody step it up a notch, I think you can compensate for Nuno not being that great defensively. I really do. S says, I'd start Nuno against Brighton, but you know how Arteta is with his man management. If he does not start him, you guys, I don't even know. He's done. It's just, this is where Arteta is going to have to earn his money. It really is because he's been really good when he's had his settled 11. Really good. but or settled 12 because we've always had like plus Smith Rowe or plus Pepe. You know, that next man up is usable. But beyond that, there's been no play because like the players left in January. We got rid of a lot of them that play in the positions that we're now looking at like, oh shit, we don't have anybody. And you're missing Thomas Partey. He needs to figure out a way for us not to capitulate from here. And this was the exact same thing that happened last season. We started to see players get injuries, and his management of the team beyond that was not good. Like he just couldn't figure out how to get us to play our way without the exact same players in those positions. And so we lost our consistency. But that's not, for me, that's not an excuse to fall away from the top four. It's not really an excuse to lose games that we shouldn't be losing. That's not really an excuse not to beat Brighton at home. You know, we don't have any other competitions. We're just focusing on the Premier League. So he has to figure it out. And it was their decision to thin out the squad. It was their decision not to bring in a striker or a midfielder. And those are things that we will talk about at the end of the season if things don't go right. Those are decisions. They didn't just happen. We decided to have this team. So he should, if he decided this, him and Edu and the Cronkies decided this is the team we're going with, going into the home stretch, then there should have been some sort of contingency or some sort of plan beyond just hopefully everybody stays fit. If that's what they thought, that Thomas Partey, Tierney, nobody was going to get any injuries, they're smoking. You know, it was always likely somebody significant was going to get injured. Olivier says Cedric turned out good, but not on the first game. So Nuno. Let's see. Christian says, exactly, we haven't experimented enough, which is why I don't understand why Lokonga or Tavares hasn't been getting much minutes. If plan A don't work, there's no plan B. These are things that we spoke about last season. You know, these are things. Richard said, I agree, Jess. Any chances to play to players' positions at this time would be dumb. Let's stick to what we know. Yeah, I think we have to stick to what we know. And I think if anybody thinks differently about the midfield, let me know. But you guys know where I stand on left back. Midfield wise, play Xhaka, Odegaard, and Lokonga. Don't do anything silly. Don't put Lokonga in a single pit. Like, you know what I could see happening, you guys, and this would piss me off, is if Xhaka played left back and Lokonga played in a single pivot by himself with Odegaard on one side and ESR on the other. That is something I can see Arteta doing. And I don't want to see that. I would rather see Lokonga, Xhaka, and Odegaard in midfield. Keep things similar, familiar, comfortable, things that we've seen work before, things that we recognize. We've never really played well with a single pivot into attacking 8/10s. Right now, like if we try that, I just see us getting eaten alive, like, you know. And Lamptey versus Xhaka, does that sound like a good matchup? Not really. So I don't know. If it comes to pace versus pace, which is basically what Lamptey is, I'd prefer Nuno there with Gabriel than Xhaka with Lamptey. Like, I just don't see it. And we need him in midfield. So there you go. Let's see. S said, I'd rather see Eddie up front than Lacko. We're getting there, S. We're getting to the striker situation. Jesus Son says, Cedric isn't Tomiyasu. He can't play as right back, center back hybrid because he's not as technically secure and is a pressing trigger for teams. And that's why I said that the other option is to bring in Rob Holding and to play kind of like how we did. Oh, sorry, you guys. Who did we do that against? I think it was like Norwich. We played. This is when Tomiyasu first got injured. We played Rob Holding and then Ben White played right back. Then you just do it like that. But the answer is for me is not, you know, putting Cedric on that side and moving like, no, like I would just say you have to get 3 center backy type defenders back there with Nuno so that he can bomb forward and we can still feel secure, and Xhaka can drop in behind him to give us that security, whether that's Cedric staying back a little bit or Ben White playing right back and bringing in Holding, I don't care. But I know Cedric's not Tomiyasu, but equally, I do think Cedric can tuck in a little bit and do a decent job. He hasn't been that bad. He really hasn't. He just couldn't play against Zaha. He was just getting cooked. It was actually crazy. Rich Something says basically we don't have the players. Goodbye top four. Oh no. S says Brighton are another tough team. They always cause us problems. Bar the last game last year. Yeah, no, I hear that, and it's not going to be easy. But the thing is like when you see your team play the way that they did yesterday, then you tend to feel like that's who we are. We're not that team. And you look at the touches that those guys they can't get any worse than that. Like they will play better against Brighton. Will it still be a tough game? Absolutely. Is it a foregone conclusion that we win? No. But the Crystal Palace game was similar to the Brighton game away from home, where they just pressed us to death and we couldn't pass a ball. Like I remember Odegaard was terrible in that game. And so they just have to suck it up as far as I'm concerned. Just suck it up, grow up. You guys have been talking about, top four. So like if you want it, you're going to have to work for it. It's not going to be easy. Let's see. Blaze says, I'm all for Pepe to start against Brighton. I'm just said that we as fans shouldn't divide players. Do you think Arteta will trust again Pepe? I think Pepe should start 2 games to let Saka rest. No, I don't think Arteta will trust Pepe. I think he's tried to put him in that position above Nketiah as the next man up, next guy off the bench, but ultimately I don't see him really trusting him to start a game. I feel like Saka will play every single game until the end of the season. That's unless he gets injured. He just doesn't trust Pepe at all. Equally, he needs to play some minutes at some points because when he comes in, he's just too rusty. Let's see. So yeah, let's talk about striker. I don't know. I think, how do you guys feel about Lacazette now? Because there's a lot of, okay, well, the reason why we lost is Lacazette, so now it's time to do the 4 of our young players up top together. Now is the time. I'm not sure I really agree. And that's not to say that I think Lacazette was great. I watched that game and I could not believe what I was seeing from him. You have went nowhere. You have no excuse for playing this way, really. I mean, what is it? You can score 3 goals in a closed door or behind closed doors friendly, but you can't get in the box for us ever. And I think there is a good point that's been obviously brought up multiple times by Tim Stillman on the Arsenal Vision podcast, but it really just it hit different. It really did this time around, that even though we accept Lacazette for who he is and we know he's leaving, that doesn't mean that it's okay for him to not be a striker at all, for him not to get shots off, for him not to get into the box, for him not to run across the make runs across the front post, for him to just be a non-striker. It feels like almost like this forced effort not to be a striker and to just be, I'm just a facilitator, so I'm not going to take any shots. That's unacceptable in his position. He has to score goals. He has to take shots. And what is it? 17? What is it? Is it 17 hours or something that he hasn't scored a goal in open play or something like that? The last time he scored a goal was against Wolves. That was 6 weeks ago. So it's been a while. He has not been good. And I get people wanting to see Martinelli. I just think now are we in a position to tinker? Is a home game, against Brighton the time to see if Martinelli can play through the middle? I don't know. I just think, and then if it doesn't work, can you trust Lacazette to come back in and do anything for you? That's the other part. So yeah, it's just, it's really just, I don't know. Lacazette, you cannot rely upon him, and he's been slowly petering out, and now we're seeing he's just kind of and and it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. Let's see. Richard says moving Ben White to midfield and holding to CB. No, I don't think. I think as good as Ben White is, I think if he was in midfield, you would definitely recognize that he's a defender. I would just move him to right back if I had to move him anywhere. Rich something says Lacazette is our Tina. There is no alternative. Damn, cold. Benjamin says, what about Saka at left back with ESR at left forward and Pepe on the right? This is what we should have done in the Europa semifinal. I don't know. I don't know about that. If hold on, you guys. Give me 1 second. I just need to check something real quick. I'm sorry. Life, things are happening. Make sure. Okay, yeah. So the only way that you can play Saka at left back is if we played in a back three and he played at as a wing back, and he was basically just behind Martinelli, and they were doing that thing that they were doing like when they first got into the team. But still, I feel like Saka has progressed beyond being our backup left back. And again, we bought Nuno for this position. And as harsh as it's going to sound, we need to see whether or not the recruitment worked or not. We do. There's still questions around our recruitment. I think ultimately most of our signings have been good. Ben White, Ramsdale, Odegaard, Sambi to a certain extent, you could probably say, even though there's some people that really just don't like him. But Nuno, that was arguably one of the most important signings for us to make this summer, was a backup left back, because our season derailed off of the back of Tierney's injury. So we need to see how bad the recruitment was to really get a clear picture of where we really stand. I'm not convinced by Adu. I do think that when you look at Nuno and what he truly is, this was a gamble, but you probably could have looked at it and said, because you got somebody a little bit closer to Tierney, a little bit more like for like, and they didn't do it. So to drag our best our best attacker, really, somebody who's instrumental in everything that we do, off of the right wing and put him in left back when we bought somebody for this exact thing, to me, doesn't wash. I think Saka has really progressed beyond being our backup left back, and I don't want to see him back there. I'd rather see it move Cedric. It's just, we don't really score if Saka is not there. Let's see. John P says, this is how I felt after Everton, and after that, we went on a great run. We need to keep the faith with this team. We just have to figure out a way to not make Brighton into Everton, because the reason why we lost against Everton is because we actually didn't recover from losing against Man United. And so that was it wasn't a humbling loss, but it was. Like, we played against Man United at Old Trafford. They played United without actually playing the guys in the actual shirts. We know Man United right now are not amazing. And they got scared and they capitulated and lost. And then they turned around and showed their ass against Everton. So, and then they started to play well again. We don't have the margins to lose against Brighton and then turn it around against Southampton away. We just don't have it. So for me, I'm trying to figure out, how do we make sure that one loss doesn't become three? How do we make sure Brighton doesn't become Everton? Because those points, if we had just beat Everton, which, looking at it now, the losing to Everton now, if we had those 3 points, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen? I do have some faith. Like, I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe it's not a crisis and they'll turn around and play well. But until I see it, I am worried. I can't lie. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, I feel the same way about Laka as I did last season. He is the only forward able to play Arteta ball. People forget that he played in midfield last season to learn this new role. He's all we got. Happily Egg says, Lacazette isn't the reason you lost. He is bad. He has forgotten where the goal is. Someone needs to draw him a map with a big old arrow. Goal. No, he isn't the reason why we lost. I just feel like it's a convenient kind of time to be like, okay, it's time to put Martinelli up top and ESR and just get rid of Lacazette. But the reason why we lost is he was bad, but so was everybody else. And I cannot get over the defense for that first goal and the defense for the second one. If you weather that storm and get through the first 30 minutes, you may be able to salvage the game. And then people start playing better. We started playing better after the 30th minute. Maybe Crystal Palace would have kept coming. I don't know. But Lacazette's not the reason why we lost. But every time we don't play well, or every game that goes by and he doesn't score a goal, obviously the target gets bigger and bigger on his back. Let's see. S says, we saw Martinelli false nine against Brighton last year and he looked terrible. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we think it's going to be better, but it could actually just be just as bad. And Martinelli is playing so well off left. Saka plays well off the right. Lacazette is just okay through the middle. But if we start tinkering now, I just feel like we're going in a dangerous, dangerous direction. Because then how do you come back from that? Let's see. Because if Lacazette is dropped for Brighton and we start playing Martinelli up top and it doesn't work, can we trust Lacazette to come back in it? And no, I don't trust him. I really don't. I think you just have to continue on with him until the rest of the season. Daniel says center forward is one of the most demanding positions. Can see Martinelli being very anonymous. I feel the same. Yo-Yo says Lacazette starts at the Emirates. Martinelli, Nketiah, Pepe starts away from home. Okay, that's a thought. If you guys agree with Yo-Yo, let me know that Lacazette can start at home and then we can tinker away from home. Rich Something says it's not like we haven't tried Martinelli at center forward before. He got dominated by two CBs and Brighton play with three. That's the issue. And then I think because when Martinelli plays off left, even though he plays kind of like a winger, he also sometimes comes central and plays like a striker. So if you have Nuno Tavares off of the left, can't he play like a winger and you can push Martinelli more central? That allows you to have a central presence and Lacazette to drop in. I just feel like we just need to keep with the system. The system didn't fail us yesterday. Our touch failed us. And our attitude and our lack of energy and enthusiasm for that game, that was more of the issue. John P. says Saka is the best option for false nine. He can play with his back to goal, hold up and link play, and have pace to get into the box. But we just do not have a good option right now. We really don't. Like, we don't have any other option that just feels right. It's just, it's really kind of scary. Blaze says the problem with Lacazette when he won't score goals and will play bad, we can't score goals, and all the pressure is to Saka or Martinelli to score goals. Yeah, it is. Like, if Lacazette doesn't perform, if, Thomas Partey doesn't perform, if Odegaard doesn't perform, like, we do have a really difficult time just creating chances. And we are kind of beholden to Lacazette. We just kind of are. Like, if he doesn't do it, we're done. That being said, even against Crystal Palace, as bad as he was playing, he helped us build up play in the second half to score a couple of goals, and we missed them. So we need to be more clinical. We're just not going to get a lot of chances with Lacazette. But when we do get them, we have to be clinical. I mean, this is kind of who we are. I think we all kind of knew this, that when we were playing really good from December until now, we were playing at our maximum. That is as good as this group of players can get. That's what we have. And until we get to the summer transfer window, this is what we have. And we kind of needed Spurs and Man United to stay bad, keep dropping points. And we kind of needed to not have any injuries to really get top four. Now we're seeing a team has stepped up. Spurs is right there. They're in the ascendancy. And we've gotten big injuries. And now we see the reality that we're just not quite there yet. There's still a glimmer of hope. But for me, like, the injuries are really just took the life out of it. Like, it just really did. Let's see. Amira says, who would you sacrifice if we played a 4-4-2 with Pepe and Laka? Pepe's our best finisher, so as long as you get the ball into the box, he's most likely to score. This is why I don't like the 4-4-2, because then you don't have Odegaard. The idea of Lacazette and Pepe playing up top together sounds good, but in reality, I feel like it wouldn't, because we'd never really have the space in behind for Pepe to kind of operate. But I guess I would have to sacrifice Odegaard, but I don't want to play anything that sacrifices one of our best chance creators. So I wouldn't even go to a 4-4-2. If I did do a 4-4-2, it would be Odegaard playing off of Lacazette. That's what I would do. I would not do the Pepe thing, unfortunately. Let's see. Jack Barnes says, perfect time to tinker when you first start, go get found out. When you first start, go get found out. I don't know. I mean, that's really a question that, I mean, did Crystal Palace suss us, or were we just not up for the game? We've been playing like this for 3 months, 4 months, and we've been playing well, even though people have scouted us. I'm not sure I believe that, like, we were just completely, like, just found out and, like, all of a sudden our system doesn't work. If we were playing well and everybody's touches were good, defensively we were fine, then yeah, I would say, yeah, like, we've been found out. But people have been marking Thomas Partey for months now. I haven't watched a game where he just got unpressured possession in midfield. The difference is that his touch was horrendous. And we were nervous and we were rattled and we were not up for the game. So I cannot, were we found out? Like, no, like, did Crystal Palace do anything different than the other teams have done? Not really. They tried to get on Odegaard. They tried to get on Saka and triple team him. They tried to get on Thomas Partey and not let him on the ball. Conor Gallagher is obviously a very good midfielder and he did a good job. But what does them scouting us have to do with us defending on a set piece? Like, I'm not sure we've been found out. I think we're nervous, and so now we want to rip it up and do something different, but there's no guarantee that that works, but we know that our system works and we've been playing it for like so many months now. Again, if everybody was kind of playing well and we just couldn't even create a single chance, and it was because they were just so on it, and just we, like, I don't know. I can't get over our touches. Like, I don't know. I don't know, you guys. I don't know. Tony says, is anyone safe from this game? I feel like the only player who played well were our subs. I mean, Nketiah played pretty well when he came on. Martinelli was okay when he came on. There were players that were less shit than others, but everybody was pretty much crap from that starting lineup. I would say the worst players were Thomas Partey, Odegaard, Lacazette, Gabriel, and Nuno. They were the worst. I thought Cedric and White were less bad than the other side, but still bad. Xhaka was less bad than Thomas Partey, but equally, they left him open and allowed him space, but he didn't make angles and try to get open for Thomas Partey. It's easier to look less shit when you're not willing to get on the ball. You know what I mean? So everybody was crap. The only players that are safe are the ones that came on, I think. Nobody covered themselves in glory. It has to be said. So yeah. Dave Riley says, Jess, are we in a false position in the league? No, I don't believe in false positions. I think you are where you are because even if other teams are bad, you still have to capitalize and take care of business. So I would never take away from what we did. And just, I know people are saying, well, Man United should have been better, but should they have? I mean, they weren't really that great last season. It was the fact that like, how do I explain this without, I know people are saying all these other teams should have been better, but we also improved. So we closed the gap on them. And when we had the opportunities to take advantage of things, we did, and we played well. So I don't think we're in a false position, just like I don't think Spurs, before we played, were in any sort of false position. They earned the right to be in fourth. We're the fifth place team right now. That's where we're supposed to be. We can't think, oh, well, Leicester, we're supposed to be better. This is just where they are. Like, they have injuries. We've gotten injuries. Like, it's just how the game goes. And I just don't really like that whole, oh, well, this team should have been better, so you really shouldn't be there. Or Man United, if they had just done this and that. Like, no. If that's how we calculate whether you deserve a spot or not, then we would be constantly saying this team shouldn't be here and this team should be here and that and that. You are where you deserve to be. Last season, we were the 8th best team in the league. We just were. So I don't think we're in a false position. I think we, how do I say this? Like, I know people are feeling like we are overperforming, or we are ahead of schedule in where we're supposed to be. I feel like we can only say whether or not we're ahead of schedule based on where we finish. Because right now, it looks like we're overperforming because we're in and around the 4th place spot. But we could finish in 6th, and that's pretty much where we were supposed to be anyway. So until the season finishes, I don't think we can really say we're ahead of schedule. If we do get Champions League, I do feel like we're better than I thought we were going to be, but we will have deserved it because we're going to have to work hard to get it. Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're in a false position. S says, I'd play Martinelli, ESR, and Saka up top. I think ESR is a super sub until he proves otherwise. John P says, we should just stick with what we are doing. Hope Tommy comes back soon and gets a good home win on Saturday. I don't know what's going on with Tomiyasu, but by the time he gets back, it'll be the difficult games. Chelsea, Man United, West Ham, all in a row. Do I really want those to be his first game starting? Do I believe that he's going to be the Tomiyasu that came in those games? At this point with the Tomiyasu thing, I'm not even, because I thought he'd be back for the Brentford game or Brighton game. Now that he's not, and he'll be back in full training after the Southampton game, I'm more thinking about what we can do without him than with him. Because by the time he gets back up to speed and potentially starting games, the season will be fucking over. Maybe he'll be up to speed by the Tottenham game, and that's something we can look forward to. But Tomiyasu has been out for 3 months, and he's going to get back into full training after the Southampton game. That will be 2 games from now. That means we'll have 7 games left, and we know it takes 3 or 4 games for you to get up to top speed. I mean, I'm not even thinking about Tomiyasu right now, if I'm being honest. We needed him back 2 months ago. That's the reality, right? Let's see. Ishak says, which positions would you change now that you have injuries? None. You play the players that you bought for those positions, you play them. You play Nuno at left back and you play Lokonga in the middle. I wouldn't change anything. Because at this point, it just feels like we're going to we're going to galaxy brain it. And we didn't like that last season when Arteta did it, so why would we do it now? Yo-Yo says, Brighton are in such bad form. These feelings should subside at the weekend. We are the perfect team to come up against when you're in bad form. I think Brighton will fancy themselves against us after the bad loss. And if we show any sort of weakness, they will exploit it. So, I don't feel confident because we said the same thing about Everton. We're kind of that team, So, yeah. And we don't really play well against them. If it was Norwich at home, I would totally feel you, Yo-Yo, but it's just not. So, yeah, I think I would keep things relatively the same, to be honest. And we could be, after the Brighton game saying oh my gosh, why were we so worried? But I am a little bit damn, I kind of need to see them play well before I can like relax, if that makes sense. That game was shocking. Um, but I did want to kind of talk about, because I know somebody had brought it up about the Darwin Nunez thing. I have to be honest, guys, watching the Champions League games today really just kind of made me like, oh, I don't want to watch this, because it almost feels like, when are we going to get back there? I know this is reactionary based on yesterday's game, but when I watch those teams play, I just think we need a lot in the summer. Even if we do get into Europe, we have to get into at least Europa League. We need a lot of signings. And I was in a space yesterday and I was like, we need like 3 signings. And they were like, no, we need like 6. And I was like, oh no, they're just overreacting. But then when I thought about it and I looked at those teams that were playing in the Champions League, they have a lot of depth. And one thing that we don't have is any depth. So not only do we have to buy starters, but we might need to look at depth. And so watching those teams play in Champions League and watching Darwin Nunez and people be like, oh, I'm so excited, we may get him. I just couldn't get excited because we're still so far away. I think that's what what I've come to the realization of is that as close as we are to top 4, we're still quite far away from where we need to be. And we're the type of team where you take out 1 or 2 players and we're totally different. We don't particularly do well with multiple games in a week. And we need a lot of players still to get us where we want to be. A couple of attackers, couple of midfielders, couple of fullbacks maybe. So, yeah, even watching Darwin Nunez really was just like, and I know, like, if you guys did watch the Arsenal Vision scouting report on Darwin Nunez, of course, he looks good against Liverpool in a Champions League game. It's like a one-off competition kind of thing. And Liverpool probably had the majority of the ball and they play a suicide high line. So he was probably getting space and doing a good job. But he wouldn't be good in our system, in my opinion. So it wasn't like that exciting, but we need a lot. If we get into Europe, we need a lot. Like we really do. We don't have the depth. And we see now we're playing 1 game a week, and injuries to Kieran Tierney and Thomas Partey have pretty much just, the doom and gloom is on a whole nother level. It's crazy. It really is. We need a lot of players. Daniel said, for this run, I feel the manager issue will be a big factor. Conte has the aura about him. His ability to motivate and keep his players' mentality in the right place is very impressive. I agree with this, Daniel. I do think that this is where having a novice manager probably will bite us in the butt. If it does bite us in the butt, he has great ideas. He's got us into a good system, playing good attacking football. Very happy with what we've achieved this season in terms of just getting into a place where we feel competitive, at least for the top 4. But when you look at how Spurs are ticking along, and I get it, we're Arsenal fans, they're Spursy, we always think they're going to spur it up. But when you have a world-class manager that's getting into the minds of players, that you have a lot of average players, but they also have some world-class players as well. And you look at their schedule, I think we got as much help as we're going to get from Tottenham now. You know, they were really bad for a period of time and they were dropping points that they probably shouldn't have. And I don't think that that's going to continue. I'm not going to say that I feel like they're going to win every single game, but when you look at their season or you look at the back end of the schedule, they are playing against mostly teams that don't have anything to play for. Some of those games are at home and they only have to play us and Liverpool. And unlike us, they can get points from top teams. We don't do that. We have to play Chelsea, Man United, and Spurs. Those are all very difficult games. So I think, and we play Spurs away from home, and we play Chelsea away from home. So yeah, maybe having a more experienced manager that knows what to do in these scenarios. And really, Arteta should know what to do in this situation, because this is kind of the situation that he was in last season. Couple games to go, playing for something. The difference was it was a Europa League versus fighting for top 4. But we got a couple of injuries, and we had a bad loss. What is he going to do? Conte seems like he's doing something at Spurs, and I do think that could be the deciding factor, but that's just the risk that you take when you bring on a novice manager. He has to get experience on the job, and that sometimes will cost us. Ivy says, I'm just disappointed. I don't think Arteta should extend his contract, to be honest. Not getting a player in January will come back to bite us. Well, the thing about extending the contract is that you can still get out of it no matter what. So, and I think the board is really in bed with Arteta. He would really have to shit the bed at the end of the season for him not to be here. I get the being disappointed. I'm a little bit disappointed as well. Like just the manner of the loss is hard to get over. But not getting players in January was also always going to be something that needed to be evaluated at the end of the season. There was a lot of people that felt like they wanted to protect the club and protect Arteta and make it seem like that was a good choice. And for 3 months, it seemed like a good choice because nobody was getting injured. We were playing really well, and we had not reached any bumps in the road. Now that those players have gotten injured, it could be something that we look back on and say that was a huge mistake. Right now, if maybe we had Ainsley Maitland-Niles or Chambers, we wouldn't be so scared about Nuno not being ready. If we had brought in a midfielder, even on loan, Spurs brought in Bentancur. I know we don't want to hear it, but he's better than Harry Winks, and he's doing a decent job for them. That's a loan player. So could we have not loaned in somebody? Did it have to be the perfect person? I think that we missed something there. But again, at the end of the season, if we end up in fourth, then it's kind of like, okay, well, it was probably fine. But if we fall away and it comes off of the back of us having injuries, but we weakened the squad or we thinned out the squad in January and also didn't bring people in, it will come into question. So I do agree around the disappointment, and not getting a player in January will be something that we'll look at. We will look at the end of the season. Let's see. Johnny says, I feel like this shouldn't be a sudden realization. The likes of City and Liverpool have at least 2 first 11s for every position. They have so much depth. We're nowhere near this level of depth. It's not that it's like I didn't realize that we didn't have the depth. It's just more like I was thinking for the summer we need like 3 players, but now looking at it, we probably need some more. And even though we are in and around the top 4, it's going to be very difficult for us to compete in multiple competitions and do well in them with what we have now. So that's all I'm saying. Like, I know we don't have the depth, but it just really hit me with the doom and gloom that hit off of 2 players going down. It shouldn't be like that. Like, it really shouldn't. We just don't have enough players. We really don't. S says, I've always said Partey's our most important player. We're potentially about to see how important he is, actually. I mean, I agree. You know how I feel about Thomas Partey. I think he's played really well up until now. And then hearing that he was fatigued before he played is another one of those things, right? Where Kieran Tierney is, the thing is because we're under such pressure to perform and to keep that starting 11 together, because without it, we're nothing. Those players end up having to play more minutes than they probably should have to. And so you have 2 players that are kind of probably always on the line, Thomas Partey and Kieran Tierney. And after going on international duty, they were probably in the red, and just a little bit, just pushing them a little bit, putting that pressure on them to come back, not having somebody there where we could rest them for a game and they could be fresh for Southampton has cost us. Very similar to Tomiyasu, under immense pressure to make sure that we stay in these cup competitions. And Tomiyasu went down. He came back. He wasn't 100% fit. We pushed him. Now he's been out for 3 months. So this all goes back to the management of the squad, the decisions to thin out the squad further, the decisions in the summer to bring in the players that we did, to not bolster the midfield. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've been speaking about for 2 years now that have not really gotten taken care of, and they keep rearing their ugly heads at the end of the season. So, yeah, Thomas Partey, if he's your most important player, then you have to have somebody that you feel comfortable with and confident with so that even if it's not, it doesn't have to be an injury that keeps him out. Maybe he just needs rest. Should he have to play every single game? Should he have to play against Norwich? Should he have to play against Leeds? Should he have to play against, I don't know, anybody? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was no opportunity to give these players rest. And then when they go to international duty, it just broke them. That's it. So yeah. Let's see. Eshak says, question, do you think Nuno Tavares is being made a scapegoat because he was subbed off early before? Maybe it's a little bit of that. I mean, he was bad, but equally, everybody else was bad. And I have higher expectations for the players that have been playing all season than somebody that hasn't played since the last time he got snatched off the pitch. So yeah, I don't think we should be scapegoating Nuno because everybody was terrible. Let's be real. T-Cal says, Jess, we're not playing great attacking football. We're 16th in real chance creation in the league. Yeah, but we're sitting in 5th place. Like, I get that we use certain statistics to back up arguments that fit our narrative, and then we sit around and turn around. Like, so if we were creating a lot of chances, but we weren't actually scoring the goals, would we be a better team? Probably not. There's several teams that are in and around us that create more chances than us, but also give up more chances on the other end. So I get what you're kind of trying to say, like, oh, we're not really a good attacking team because this one metric says that we're not. But I think that the amount of goals that we've scored since December, in particular, when we actually clicked into gear, would say that we are playing better attacking football than we did last season. Is it like all out attack the way that Arsenal fans want to see because they're still stuck on Arsen? No. But equally, look who we have up front. Look who we have up front. I don't think Arteta can coach better attacking football with this group. We need to get more strikers. We need to get more attackers. So I get what you're saying. We have improved, but certain statistics make it easy for you to kind of defend your narrative, where I don't necessarily feel like creating a bunch of chances, but also giving them up on the other end and not actually finishing the chances that you're creating necessarily makes you a much better attacking team. That's all I'm going to say on that. And there's the teams that you're probably looking at that have better attacking metrics as well. Like, here's the thing. You got to use your eye test as well. So that statistic makes it look like we never create any chances. But when I watch us play, I do think we create chances. Whether they're like amazing chances, sometimes not. We miss some sitters. Like, I think my eye test would say that we're a pretty good attacking team. The amount of goals that we've scored is decent. We also keep people from attacking us. We control games okay. So I don't know. I feel like we're better. Like, I feel like we're better than we were. Are we amazing? No. But look at the players that we have. Like, look at what we have. Like, we don't even have a striker. Most teams that we're talking about, like, even like you looked at Mateta yesterday, I'm like, we could use that. Like, we don't even have a striker. So, and we have 2 20-year-olds up front. I feel like we are a couple players away from watching that attack really do its thing. That's just me, though. S says, mark my words, Charlie Patino is going to at least be in rotation in the next few years. He'll be the answer to a lot of our midfield problems in like 5 years. Happily Egg says, sorry to repeat this. You can't blame the back four. It has to fall on Arteta's setup. His spacing in the midfield was poor. It allowed CP to press and to push onto the back four. No, I hear what you're saying. I don't feel like they did anything particularly special but have more energy. And Conor Gallagher was like a free presser on Thomas Partey. But equally, even if your tactical setup is not right and you need time to figure it out, that's for me not an excuse to duck on a free kick. So Arteta's setup may not have been perfect, and Vieira's setup might have had him at a disadvantage. But when you break it down, that free kick may have been because we were under pressure, but you still don't duck. If Klopp, I think you're a Liverpool fan, if Klopp setup wasn't as good as Pep's, and Man City was getting the best of you for the first 20 minutes of a match, and Klopp needed to make changes, but he couldn't do it right then because it takes you time to make changes. Would it have been just like, oh, it's okay if they got a free kick and De Bruyne kicks it into the box and Van Dijk ducks or Andy Robertson ducks? That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes the other team will be getting the best of you at the beginning of a match, and your setup, you need to make some changes. Maybe you need to drop Xhaka back a little bit. Maybe your team just needs to decide to trap a ball right. Maybe you need to bring somebody in. Maybe you just need to shift things around. But for me, that's why you have players that are good, so that they can save you when you're not playing particularly well or the setup is not right. That was horrible defending. And that free kick had nothing to do with them pressing us. It really didn't. Gabriel popping out the way he did and leaving the front line and just being rash may have been a consequence of us being under pressure, but equally, like, top teams, even when they're under pressure, keep clean sheets for like the first 30 minutes so that they can have time to grow into the game and for the manager to make changes. Sometimes you just are not set up perfectly. And quite honestly, like, the Man City game, we were set up right. The Liverpool game, we were set up right. We didn't win those games. This is the first time in a long time that we played against a team where I felt like, oh, they're getting the best of us. Not an excuse to defend like shit. Sorry. Those players are getting paid way too much and they're too good to be doing that. Like, that was just, it was terrible. Nashville says, energy and willingness to compete are more important than the setup. We were second best to both categories. I mean, yeah, your setup is never going to work if you're just not available to play hard. Like, would they have looked so good if we could trap a ball? Because sometimes in a game, and Clive said this on the Arsenal Vision, sometimes when teams are being really physical with you, sometimes you just have to win the battle for the first 10 minutes. Just knock a couple players down, make sure that they don't beat you to the ball, sprint, run hard for the first 10 minutes, and that'll put them off, and then you can play your game. We just never did that. So I have a hard time looking at the setup when the players just weren't even involved. That doesn't mean that they weren't set up properly. Like, Vieira definitely was set up in a way where it was going to cause us trouble. But equally, I can't get over the defending for that free kick. Like, I just can't get over it, because we should have been able to get out those first 30 minutes, get out without giving up a goal, we should have been 0-0 after the first 30 minutes. And then maybe we could have, because after the first, they stopped pressing us because they couldn't keep up that intensity after like the first half. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, Arteta's setup wasn't great, but you couldn't even see his setup because they weren't playing. They just weren't, like, so there you go. Let's see. I'm literally drinking coffee right now because I'm like so tired. I can't. Johnny R says, yeah, we weren't up for it. Palace started at 100 miles an hour and we were asleep. And if you noticed over the last couple of games, so we had a really good span of time between January and February where we really played quite well in the league. And then there's been games in March where, like Watford away, where Watford were up for it and we gave up 2 goals. Like, and we almost gave up a goal in the first minute of the game because we weren't ready. That was a sign. We start games okay, but if teams are really going at us, we tend to be a little bit like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this team is playing. Like, I hope this was a wake-up call that nobody's afraid of us really, and we're not as good as we think. So, like, you actually have to play hard from minute 1 to minute 90. They might have been a little bit of smelling your, reading your own press clippings. You know what I mean? We might have thought, oh, we're better than Crystal Palace. We're just going to walk in here, play our game. They're going to sit back. They're going to do this. No. Blaze said, Jess, do you think we need 2 midfielders in the summer, one to replace Partey, even when Sambi can replace him, and one other to replace Xhaka? I think Sambi is probably 3 or 4 years away from even thinking about doing what Thomas Partey does at the base of our midfield. So in the meantime, there has to be somebody there that can at least play that position, or at least be put in a double pivot where we can play at the same level. If even if it's a little bit different, just at the same level. I think that's our issue, is that there was too big of a gap between Nuno and Tierney and Sambi and Thomas. So now there's a reluctancy to use them, and it's putting pressure on Tierney and Partey to play every single game, where that's why we brought those players in. There were options to bring in over the summer that were probably a little bit closer, but we have this thing about wanting true starters and true backups, and I also think that that's a reason why our squad is not that good. There's always a clear line between starters and backups. And one of the things that Edu said in the summer was that Xhaka and Thomas are our starters, and Sambi is there to back them up. And I'm like, why can't you bring in somebody who's a little bit closer? I don't see other teams really doing this. I don't see teams that have good starters bring in bench players or like backups that are like so far away, but then also they're expected, like they are the next man up. There is nobody else, right? So I do think we probably are going to need, if Xhaka doesn't stay, we're going to need two midfielders. Like we have to replace Elneny. And then if Xhaka does leave, then we'll need two. And that would leave us with four midfielders. And they all have to be really good. Like Sambi, you might need to just bring in two anyway, because even if, I don't know, I think City have like six midfielders that can play like in that midfield three. Happily Eggs probably knows. I'm sure Liverpool have at least four or six midfielders, right? Thiago Silva, Fabinho, Henderson, Naby Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Minamino. That's five. So we're going to need probably two minimum. But what I would like to see us do this summer versus last summer is not bring in players that are 3 or 4 seasons away from actually being able to step into that position, because Thomas Partey is going to be 30, and for him to play at the highest level, and Tierney as well, and for them to be good for us, they need to be able to sit out Norwich at home. They need to be able to sit out Brentford at home. We need to be able to rotate them. Right now, we don't have that. So, yeah, we need to have more options, and we probably need 5 midfielders minimum. That's what I would say about that. Ify says we need more tough midfielders in this team. That will help a lot. I think we need combativeness. I don't think we need to bring in any small technical ballers. We have enough of those. We have enough of the Odegaard type. Like we don't actually need any more like that. We need players that will get in the mix. And the hard thing is finding players that have both, that have the technical skill and the physicality, because they cost a lot more. But I don't want to see any more like small technical players. Like I just feel like we don't have enough physicality. But no, we don't need 5 new midfielders. We need to bring in at least 2, and that would give us 5. Like we have 3 now once Elneny goes. We have Lokonga, Thomas Partey, and Xhaka. I don't see Xhaka leaving. Sorry, guys, I really don't. But even if he stays, like you need another midfielder and probably one more. You know, you can bring up one of your under 23s, but just like we've seen with Charlie Patino, like he's one of our best, and he couldn't do anything. Aziz, I don't know what's going on with him. He went on loan and then came back. So Arsenal need to go out there and find some midfielders. And there's value in the market, but you can't bring in more players that have never played in a top 5 league and are super young. Like you need to bring in players that can make a difference. So Johnny R says, totally agree on tough mids. We need huge physicality, someone like Fabinho and N'Golo Kante type player. Like you need to get somebody that's just, the midfield is a battle. And I'm not saying you should have a bunch of Sissokos in there that can't dribble and can't pass, but we just don't have enough of that. And Xhaka, he's not necessarily like not physical, but his physicality is more foul the guy. Like we need players that people are afraid to go up against. And If Conor Gallagher is running around Thomas Partey, they lay him flat. Like, period. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe somebody like Gravenberch would be good, but he'll end up at Bayern Munich. That's the hard thing about this, you guys, is that the players that are probably fit that profile are going to be hard to get because the better teams are going to be interested in them. This is where recruitment is so important. And this is why I think we have to see what the recruitment actually did for us from the beginning of the season to the end. We need to see Nuno and Sambi play for the rest of the season. We do, because we need to know the truth about our recruitment. Sorry, I have thoughts about Adu. I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he's looking in the right places. I think he kind of takes the easy way out and looks at his Rolodex and tries to find players like that. But yeah, I mean, we need players that give us value, that are young enough where they have some time to grow, but are not so young and so inexperienced that they need 4 seasons to get involved. Like, it's just, we can't do Sambis and Nunos. We have to get players in there, and we can't be afraid for people to have to fight for their position. There's something weird with Adu and Arteta where they want clear starters and clear backups. I don't really like that. Nashville says Xhaka is not as easy to replace as everyone thinks. No, I agree with that. Blaze says Calvin Phillips type midfielder. I mean, isn't he just more of like a traditional number 6? He's also somebody that I'm not sure you get value for that. I feel like you're going to have to pay $60 million for him, and I'm not convinced that he's a $60 million central midfielder or £60 million central midfielder. Remember, Thomas Partey cost us 50. So I'm not sure if that's the value that I'm thinking of. Like, when I'm thinking value, I'm thinking more like, could you go to Borussia Mönchengladbach and say like, hey, could we get Neuhaus for 40? You know, somebody like that. Or could you go to one of those places in Portugal and get any midfielder that they have? Because for some reason, every midfielder coming out of Portugal is the shit, and offering them 30 million for them, like, value, something like that. Calvin Phillips is not value for money because you're going to have to pay the English tax for him. And I still think that there's better midfielders out there, even though I do think that he would be okay in our midfield. Let's see. Happily Eggs said Elliott, Milner, Fabinho, Thiago, Curtis, Henderson, Minamino, Keita, and 2 or 3 youngers that are making the step up. I mean, that's like 6, 7 midfielders. We're definitely nowhere near there. We need at least 5. So yeah, we have some work to do. We definitely have some work to do. There's a lot of questions around transfers and what we need now. I think we can hold off on some of those conversations until we figure out where we actually land. But after the game against Brighton, I will do player ratings after that game because I don't work until later on. Hopefully we're talking about a win. It is Tuesday, so tomorrow I probably won't do a show, but we'll do the match preview on Thursday. And so come back for that. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody. I know we had a lot to say today, but it's already been 2 hours and I'm sure we could talk all night. So I'm going to let you guys go, but I enjoyed this Arsenal therapy. This did make me feel a little bit better. I like to know that other people are like there with me, like through this difficult time. And hopefully we're not talking about difficult times after the weekend. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. If not, I'll see you on Saturday. If not, I'll see you on Monday. Next time I see you, yeah, we'll have a good time. My name's Jessica. You can follow me on Twitter at JustKnowTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. And I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.